Hey there, I'm Alex Kidman. This is the Sonos Roam 2. Let's get into the review. Sonos's best known products are its in-home speakers and soundbars, but in recent years it's branched out into more portable fare, from the Sonos Ace headphones to its larger Sonos Move speakers, as well as today's subject, the smaller Sonos Roam 2. Now, full disclosure here, I didn't actually test out the original Sonos Roam. That job fell to others at publications I've previously worked for, so I'm not addressing this so much as an update product in this review, if that's important to you. In design terms, the Roam 2, it's a triangular portable speaker. It's suitable for either horizontal or vertical placement. At 168 by 62 by 60 millimeters and 430 grams of weight, it's an easy enough speaker to pick up and move around with you at will, which is entirely the point, of course, of any portable speaker. With portability in mind, it is IP67 rated for water and dust ingress, but as a quick reminder, that doesn't mean that you can go scuba diving with it. It just means that if it rains on it, if it gets a little bit wet, it should have a reasonable chance of surviving. But as always, IP ratings are with clean lab water, not with the kind of liquids that actually happen to most of us in our everyday lives. Still, IP67 is good enough for a speaker of this type. The Roam 2 comes in 4 colour choices: black, white, sunset, which is basically red, wave, which is basically blue, or olive, which, as you might imagine, is basically green. And the model, as you can see, that Sonos loaned me for this review was the black variant. Black is a good and reliable colour for speakers because, like so many fashion choices, it basically goes with everything without necessarily standing out. If you didn't want the Sonos logo on the front to massively stand out while indoors for some reason, for example, this would be the colour to buy. But it also points to a relatively simple problem I've encountered while I've been testing it. So the Roam 2 has 2 sets of control buttons. On the back of the speaker, there's a USB-C port for charging, a thin power button, and a Bluetooth pairing button. And as I understand it, the original Sonos Roam had just the combo power and Bluetooth button. So having a dedicated button for Bluetooth is definitely a nice physical upgrade. Now, those controls are simple enough, and I did have to get used to having those startup sounds, which I'm used to with these smaller speakers. You just get a small light on the front to indicate that it's actually on. I had much larger issues, though, with the volume, microphone, and playback controls on the Sonos Roam 2's left-hand side, or top if you've got it placed vertically. They're simple enough rubber buttons, but on the black model, if I'm indoors, they're genuinely hard to see. We're in proper disaster area sunship territory here, unless you're looking directly at it in bright sunlight. Now, I guess the idea here is that you are going to roam with the Sonos Roam 2, but it's still less than optimal, and looking at the pictures of the other colours, I don't think it's quite as pronounced there. The Sonos Roam 2 is a Sonos product, so it works natively within the Sonos ecosystem, as well as being a standalone Bluetooth speaker for anything that can handle up to Bluetooth 5.2. Now, I can't imagine that too many buyers would actually opt for the Roam 2 unless they already had Sonos gear to hand, but if you wanted to, you could just use it as a basic Bluetooth speaker and never go near Sonos's apps and services at all. Now, the thing is, you probably should, even though not that long ago, Sonos updated its apps and changed much of its UI. And this is something where the Sonos Roam 2 really doesn't benefit all that much. I know there's a lot of people out there who are not terribly happy with the latest Sonos app updates. I'm one of them, to be honest with you. But because the Roam 2 is a portable speaker, and because it lacks a dedicated charging base, unless you leave it plugged into a wall socket or in use, it'll power itself down when not in use by default. Now, that's smart for battery preservation, but it does mean that a lot of the time I'd go to the Sonos app, I'd want to play some audio through it, and I'd see everything else in my Sonos system, but not the Roam 2, until I remembered, oh, it switched stuff off again. It is worth persevering with the Sonos app, however, as it does provide access to features such as True Play for more accurate room audio tuning, as well as obviously a quick glance capability for its battery status. As with many Sonos products, it's designed to be fairly simple and fairly easy to configure, and that's true right up until it isn't. So, for example, on both iOS and Android, I had few issues, but for whatever reason during my review period, the Mac Sonos app wanted to update itself literally, and I am using that term correctly here, people, literally every time I started it up. It wanted to run updates. It wanted to talk to the Roam 2 about updates. It just took ages to actually play the music, which is kind of the point here, isn't it? In terms of audio output, well, look, the Roam 2 is a smaller Sonos speaker, and so you're never going to get impressively massive output the way you do out of Sonos's larger and more appealing speakers that can have much larger drivers and subwoofers and so on. But the audio output's generally quite good across a whole range of genres and music. I generally found it worked quite well as long as you didn't push the volume up. And there isn't so much problem with distortion. I think it actually handles distortion fairly well. It's more that if you're into your thumping bass tracks, you're just not going to get them out of a speaker of this size, essentially speaking. There's not enough body to the speaker to manage that kind of thing. But for general out and about broadcast of your audio or podcast or whatever it is you want to listen to that you connect it up, yeah, it actually does pretty well. Obviously, one of the limitations of YouTube is I can't really play a whole bunch of music to you because I'd get copyright struck into oblivion, but it's decent enough. You also get support for voice control, either via Sonos' own inbuilt voice assistant or Amazon Alexa, if that's your home assistant of choice. There's no inbuilt Google Assistant because, well, Sonos and Google really don't like each other very much anymore, or direct Siri control, although Apple's AirPlay 2 is supported as long as the Sonos Roam is actually powered on. Neither voice assistant is enabled by default. You've got to go through, again, the iOS or Android apps only to configure those. For essential audio functions, the Sonos voice assistant works well enough from a reasonable sort of distance. Your basic play pause stuff works well enough. Searching for artists has worked well enough. I'm happy enough with it. I'm not someone who loves using voice assistants that way. And if you're like me, you can just disable it, of course, by simply tapping on the microphone button. In terms of battery life, Sonos's claim for the Roam 2 is that it'll manage up to 10 hours of battery playback, and based on a couple of weeks of testing, yeah, it can mostly manage that, though that's only at moderate volumes, as you can probably expect. If you absolutely blast audio at high volumes, you'll get less battery life. Sonos doesn't provide a charger in the box, just a USB-C cable, but the Roam 2 is capable of charging up to 15 watts from a compliant charger, or rather nicely, via Qi if you place it vertically on a standard Qi charging plate. And that could be one way to integrate it into a home environment. Take it out and about with you, listen to music on the go, and then drop it onto a Qi or Qi 2 charging plate, and it will slowly top the battery up while you're at home, ready to go for the next time you head out. So should you buy the Sonos Roam 2? Well, look, it's certainly a capable portable speaker. It lives up to the general audio promise of most Sonos gear. But it's not inexpensive at $299 Australian at the time of recording this, and it does exist in a category where there are plenty of quite capable small Bluetooth speakers. As such, it's a tough one to recommend if all you want is portability and you're not already in the Sonos ecosystem for other speakers. If you do already have Sonos gear, yeah, sure, it's a decent enough accompaniment to them at a premium price, though I still do wish that the Sonos app experience was a little more streamlined, a little bit more stable. And that's my take on the Sonos Roam 2. Got any thoughts or comments? Drop them in below. Thanks for watching all the way through to the end. And as always, don't forget to hit like and hit subscribe. Thank you.